We are in the midst of whatever happens after an Ireland defeat. I'm not quite sure if it's an autopsy or a post-mortem or whatever it is, but Dave McIntyre is here with us. Dave, how are you?
Good morning, gents. How are we?
Also here as ever with us is Eoin.
Good morning.
Just want to play you this clip from Sky Sports News this morning. They summed up Ireland's appearances in the European Nations Cup very well. Have a listen.
There were boos at full time at the Aviva Stadium. The Republic of Ireland are still pointless in the Nations League.
Now, I mean, he's right, but he's wrong. But he's right.
Well, it depends what his intention was.
Well, he means we're pointless. There is no point to us.
Well, there's no point in us being in the Nations League.
Not anymore, not at the start. It's been a pointless exercise. It's been futile. It's been bullshit.
Technically, he's incorrect. Figuratively, he's probably hit the nail on the head.
We nicked a home point against a Denmark team shorn of Christian Eriksen. That's our limit of our ambition these days.
Well, like, it depends how much you enjoy pain or how much you see this as kind of a good exercise in kind of opening up the pits of despair. Because it's actually been quite useful in that regard, where you're like, oh, wow, this is as shit as a team can get in terms of what I support.
Renaissance medical practitioner opening a vein and letting you bleed out and going, yeah, look, all that blood. That blood looks very good. Maybe we should, sew him back up. He's dead.
Yeah.
Patient's dead.
Yeah, or you could...
We're dead.
Sort of. It's like the bubonic plague of apathy, really, in Ireland at the moment, where nobody actually cares about anything to do with the Ireland national team until actually they concede yesterday. And you're like, actually, I do care a good bit, and a huge part of me is really gutted that this Nations League campaign is ending the way it ends.
To continue the patient analogy, the patient's looking at the blood dripping out and going, is there any chance we could get that sewn up? And the doctor's saying, do you know what, I'm not sure we can afford to sew you up. We might just have to take a few weeks to see if we can find the money to sew you up.
I'm also not good enough to sew you up. I don't know how to sew you up. Actually, you know what?
And life with one arm is pretty good.
Yeah, okay. So the boos at full time that the Sky Sports News presenter mentioned there were for the referee, apparently, according to Martin O'Neill. Were they? Or were they for the team? Was the team booed off? That in my lifetime has happened, I'd say, once. It happened when, after Saipan, when the Russians came to town and hammered us. I don't remember there being boos during the Staunton era, so much as like, oh.
Well, the worst results in the Staunton era were, say, for away from home. And because I know that they were booed off the team in Cyprus, off the pitch in Cyprus, and we were beaten 5-2.
Were they, yeah?
I do recall there being some boos after one of the games against one in the Trapattoni era at home after
Sweden.
a qualifier. Was it Sweden?
Was it Sweden
we
game?
lost 2-1 after Robbie Keane had given us the lead. Might have been that game. But it doesn't happen very often, and the Irish fans are, they're incredibly loyal, and there's over 38,000 there last night. Now, I know there were a lot of comps doing the rounds in the build-up to the game and the 48 hours before the game, but I mean, that's still a pretty big crowd given how poor the results have been lately, and they do tend to stand by a group of players which, I said this before on the show, I find it very difficult to be critical of, because they didn't give anything less than everything they had yesterday, and they were devastated at the full-time whistle. I mean, how can you be critical of them? Are they the best players we've ever had? No. Could they be a bit more careful and thoughtful and clever about the way they go about things? Possibly, but they care about as much playing for Ireland as any group of Irish players have. It's hard to point the finger at them and lambast them.
Is it definitely a worse team than the Welsh team that was put out last night?
On paper, definitely not.
Well, there you go. Like,
seven of the
players have to take some sort of blame for a performance where they lose 1-0 to a team like that Welsh team at home. Like, I'm all on board for saying that we probably need new management, but ultimately some of the players have to take responsibility for a performance that leads to that result last night, no?
I know, yeah, you can maybe be critical of the performance, but you can't criticise the effort. That was the only positive Martin Neal was able to take from the game.
Come on, we take that as given. We have to accept that every Irish team that goes out there, they're going to give all their effort. Occasionally teams will choke, and fair enough, you don't do, but like the bare minimum is like 5 out of 5 for effort, and then some like hard work, preparation, readiness for the battle, like tactical awareness.
Well, the players don't come up with that themselves. Preparation, tactical awareness, opposition analysis, set-piece play.
Set-piece play, shape,
working on the formation.
The pitch is very big though, Dave. It's a big L pitch, according to Martin O'Neill this week in the build-up. It's a big pitch, the Aviva.
The Republic of Ireland are still pointless in the Nations League.
Trapattoni spent 4 years talking down the technical capacity of our players.
He got it right though, right? Like this is.
But Martin O'Neill does the same.
I know.
We slag him for it.
Yeah, I know. It's true. Look, here's the thing.
What's the difference?
Well, O'Neill has been getting slagged for it. You can't do it. You're not allowed to say it about your own players. It might be the truth, but you can't say it about your own players.
But
he can't.
The two managers together in succession have me convinced, because I was always able to argue, at least with myself, if not the likes of you guys, that there was far more in this group than we are seeing.
Well, the team
I'm starting to disbelieve that.
The team that Trapp inherited was far better than this team. Like Richard Dunn, Damien Duff, Shay Given.
Keane.
Like that's enough. That's the backbone, the spine of a team that you put any old tat around it, and it's like, okay, well, actually, look, it's got Duffer, it's got Robbie Keane, it's got Richard Dunn. These are like proper seasoned internationals who have played at the very top level in the Premier League. This current team, like, who are you hanging your hat on?
I do wonder if Martin O'Neill actually believes in the team in terms of the selection over the last 2 matches. Like the Cyrus Christie thing seems pointed to me. He's probably our best performer over the 2 matches, which is the great irony of all of this. But it seemed pointed to the fact that we spoke so much, especially in the media, especially in the newspapers, about Matt Doherty over the past 2 months. And Martin O'Neill was quite cold to him at the start. I don't think he'd deny that himself. And then suddenly when he had to include him in his team, he's like, well, okay, let's see the knock-on effect of actually including this guy, the superstar that you're all talking about, who plays for a fantastic Wolves team. Let's see him now in my team. Oh, look, that player now has to play central midfield, despite the fact that he hasn't played there in 9 years, since he was 14 years of age. It all feels like it might have been a team selection that was based on something of making a point to all of us, saying, well, you know what, maybe just saying that the best player for a club should always be starting for their country shouldn't be the correct course of action.
The way that Mourinho would have made a point to Abramovich over the years by picking a player in a certain position, say, see, you didn't give me any money, this is what I've been reduced to.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. And it shouldn't be, because it's international football. We're crap. Matt Doherty is good. It's as simple as, like, it's not like, I think the way he's reacted, it's bang on the money, the comparison with Jose Mourinho, but it shouldn't be like that, because we're not in exactly as great a position as Jose when it comes to world class.
Okay, so like, just to take away all the everybody is already biased against the O'Neill scenario and situation. They hate the way he names the team so late. They hate the fact that he's been so stubborn about getting Matt Doherty in the team in the first place. They hate a load of stuff, right, about this management team and the Harry Kane stuff, the Declan Rice stuff. If you take all that away, the Cyrus Christie thing wasn't a massive flop.
No.
And like, these decisions need to be analysed individually and go, well, okay, I understand exactly now what was going on there. So I have a little bit of sympathy with him on that front, but it's all the other stuff. It's the stuff where you get beaten at home by a mediocre Wales team, shorn of their 2 best players. It's the bit where you don't really have any meaningful attacks against a Danish team, shorn of their best player in a competition where you're supposed to be at least as good as them. Like, we've got no hope. That's the issue. We have no hope anymore.
Well, the thing is, we'll be going to, as we were saying before we came on air, we'll be going to Kosovo and playing them in Pristina in 4 years' time, hopefully, if you get them. Maybe Romania, maybe Bulgaria. Cheap pints, even cheaper opportunities to attack the opposition. So there's plenty of hope at the end of the tunnel here, and I'm looking forward to 4 years' time. Certainly, you know, the idea of €8 pints in Aarhus in a couple of weeks isn't really that salivating. So I think we should be happy with regards to
the Republic of Ireland are still pointless in the Nations League.
Just play the clip. It's Stephen Hunt talking about Ireland and Wales last night.
All-time talents.
Got her written down, 1 goal away from booze.
Yeah, I had that sense as well.
/ sack.
Yeah.
Because
I think he's okay now.
Yeah, I generally listen. The results are not good enough. It's a results-based business, international football, club football. But I think Randolph's save might have just saved a lot of criticism / sack come O'Neill's way.
Because if that goal goes in, that one-on-one that Randolph saves, it's 2-0, and there's a good 3, 4, 5 minutes left for everybody to really get annoyed about it.
Yeah, I agree. And they could have scored in the last 10 minutes, 2 or 3 occasions. They lacked a bit of quality to finish this off. Either lacked quality or lacked fitness to be really on the game.
Experience, actually. I think they got sucked into the madness of it. Nathan said at one point in commentary, we've created a mental game here by going basically 2-4-4.
Whatever it was, even they couldn't get the gist of it.
And they almost suddenly found themselves in a weird kind of setup. They're not tactically set up to handle a 2-4-4, and the game became a bit crazy, but they really they had 2 or 3 or 4 chances where if there was composure, they would have scored a second and a third. So in that sense, I mean, you know, and it finishes in a moment where Ireland have been denied a claim for a handball, Harry Arter's final shot. So the boos, if you heard boos at the end, the boos were for the referee not giving a handball, not for the performance, I think.
Yeah, I think the adrenaline of the last 5 minutes that Ireland had in their half has covered up the last half hour for me.
Yeah, so that's Stephen Hunt speaking with Joe and Nathan at the end of the game last night. Your comments have been pouring in this morning, as they always do when it comes to the Ireland football team. And look, we've been a bit flippant about it, like a little bit, but this is a low point for the most important international sports team in the country. This is a new low ebb, like as low as it was under the Staunton era.
You just have to hope it's the lowest.
Well,
you just have to hope that it doesn't get any lower.
And there's no guarantee, there's no sign of that, there's no sign of, the headline in one of the papers this morning was no sign of the slide stopping, I think it was the Times.
And that's the key difference to the Staunton era, because you knew when you were watching those performances against Cyprus and against San Marino that they're not going to let this go on so long. And you also knew what Steve Staunton was being paid and that it wasn't going to be a major issue for the FAI to, you know, call a halt to this. Watching Ireland at the moment, you don't really know how long this is going to go on for. And if you, as far as I'm concerned, if you start with O'Neill, you might as well finish with him because you'll have lost a campaign anyway. The big question is, do any of us feel that a different manager will get more out of this group of players?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they were as clearly you understand there was a hope because they were underachieving so wildly. Like, you look at the calibre of players. Now, how much are we underachieving?
I don't know. It's impossible to say, isn't it? Like, if
we got bodies back, if you got, you know, a fully fit Robbie Brady, James McCarthy, Callum O'Dowda would be back, Kieran Clark would be back. I mean, there's certainly 5, or Stephen Ward could be back. There's 5 or 6 guys that are at least viable alternatives
and
in terms of players in the starting 11, and there's depth.
Yeah.
So then, therefore, there are more options on the bench as well. If Shawnee Maguire is fully fit and back at his peak level of fitness and scoring goals for Preston again, you know, the Declan Rice situation somehow magically fell our way. Then you've got a decent team with, you know, 14, 15 good footballers to choose from. But is Martin O'Neill then going to get more out of the group? And if you think yes, well then stick with him. If you think there's other guys out there, I don't know who these men are, that will do a better job with this specific group that we saw last night and against Denmark, well then you have to talk about sacking him, but then the financial implications come into play.
So Graham Gallagher says on YouTube, I honestly don't give a damn about the Euros, I just want a manager in with fresh ideas. Like, honestly, I keep banging on about it. There will be a European Championship finals game in Dublin, in our stadium, which we would be playing in if we qualify. That's guaranteed, it's nailed on. We will have that home game. It will be the biggest moment in Irish football since we were in a World Cup in 2002. Like, bigger than the Euros, bigger than any of that kind of stuff. Maybe the France game, maybe playing France in the Euros and going 1-0 up. Like, okay, fair enough. But it's as big as that. Like, it's a historic moment in Irish football. That's what's on the line. That's why this next 5 months, 6 months is unbelievably important.
There's a tweet from Aidan O'Hara of the Irish Independent last night saying this: we've got a really average group of players with a manager who doesn't know how to get the best out of them. And that, for me, summed it up. That's where the hope is lost.
Peter Breen on YouTube says, what does everyone actually expect can happen when you have a squad of players playing mostly in Championship football and the opposition of players playing Champions League? Except...
That's not the case this last 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, so if Eriksen and Bale have been playing, you're like, okay, fair enough, they have superstars, we need to build our game plan around stopping that, and that's a challenge, and you do that, and then you try and nick one, right? That's like, that would, but we've no identity at the moment. Now, maybe the bones of a 3 at the back identity was beginning to form over these 2 games. It's a little bit late in the entire enterprise for O'Neill to be building that, but like, when you look at the Northern Ireland team who overachieved, when you look at the Iceland team who overachieved, when you look at the Welsh team who, like, by reaching a semi-final of the European Championships are overachieving, what they all have is a fairly clear identity, right?
They had a 19-year-old, and 2 19-year-olds, an 18-year-old and 3 21-year-olds in their starting 11 last night, the Welsh. 7 of the starting 11 played in the Championship. So while that listener's text is, our viewers' text is absolutely valid when it comes to us taking on the likes of Germany and Spain and France, it's not valid at all.
Yeah,
over the last week.
Graham Gallagher answered that actually on YouTube as well. Look at the Welsh squad, players playing in the third tier of English football, but gigs had the foresight to blood young players who beat us last night. Hashtag OTBAM. Scott Hogan is one of our backup strikers, a man who hasn't played a minute of football for Aston Villa, says Jurli sub to Chesra. What? It's an interesting name. Like Scott Hogan isn't rubbish. He's just having a bad time at club football. Like I think it's still legit to nurse players through bad club situations and to try and get them into better ones by saying, "Oh, look, you know."
But nursing the players through bad club situations used to be nursing players through situations where they were at the top of the championship. For example, there is this slow sort of fall to a place where we could have a few League One regulars in the Ireland national team in the coming years, and I think that is a downfall that's not going to be arrested anytime soon. That's why I'm deeply concerned that we haven't seen the lowest level of this yet. I'm very worried that we're going to finish like 4th in this qualification campaign. That it's like we go in as 3rd seeds and we underachieve even in that situation.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a very good chance that's going to happen, especially unless, like, it's Mick McCarthy who's going to get this job if they go for it now, right? That's what's going to happen. And that is not a massive step forward.
But it's a change.
But it doesn't, like, that's just change for the sake of change.
I think we need a change. And
I think
Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane's tenure has been successful in its totality. But we're going with the one benefit of this UEFA Nations League is that you can go through a period such as this and still get the opportunity to start with a clean slate on the back of a failed World Cup campaign. So we do get the opportunity to start from scratch before this European qualification campaign, and we're not really starting from scratch with the same management. And I think with those players, we didn't even mention Seamus Coleman there, who's arguably our best player. If those 5, 6, 7 guys were available, and it's international football, you're always going to be missing some guys. There is a team there, if organised in the right way, that could be very effective. That's the hope that I still have.
Well, and I guess if you're Martin O'Neill and you're sitting down for breakfast this morning with Delaney, that's what you're saying. It's like, look, John, these are the injury situation we have. We've blooded a bunch of new players in this. It's actually not that important. No one really cares about the Nations League. You got, what, 70,000 at 2 games in the Aviva for essentially friendlies. That's not bad. When everybody comes back fit, I'll have them ready to go. I've got an idea now. 3 at the back might be the future for us. You put Coleman in at right wing back instead of that clown. It's like, you have the arguments there if you're the manager to go, look, I've got a vision for this.
He is the only person arguing that these are anything other than fully fledged competitive internationals. Certainly didn't look like a friendly to me, the reaction of the Welsh players when they
look, I'm not.
I know you're putting words in Martin.
The nation is not. I would say that the FAI need to start thinking about the appointment after Martin O'Neill and the 2 appointments later, not who's next, not who is going to go in and take this job now, because that may be the Mick McCarthy. The reason why we don't have kind of a ready-made replacement for Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane is that, like, Noel King is under-21s manager. Like, okay, fair enough, he's been on the FAI's books for years and years and years. He's a loyal servant to the FAI cause. Was he definitely the best man for that under-21s job? Granted, they've got Germany in this pool, so we're talking about the under-21s. It's unfair to judge the under-21s in this campaign because they got hockeyed by an excellent young Germany team. But where are all our ex-professionals other than Roy Keane? Where is, like, in hindsight, when you look at our current crop, the team that hasn't qualified for a World Cup from, say, 2002 to 2010, that was a golden generation, relatively, of Irish footballers. Where is any of them in the FAI setup when it comes to coaching? Where is that under-21 coach ready to step up to the senior ranks? It's just not there. Like, we don't have a ready-made replacement. We need to tough it out and make sure that the next ready-made replacement is there, because, like, as I say, I don't think this thing is over yet in terms of our descent into the basement of Irish football.
I won't be paying to see Ireland under O'Neill and Keane, and supporters should boycott the next game, says Peter Fry on Periscope, hashtag OTBAM. Sorry, I missed one as well there where Christie didn't make a forward pass all night, even with 10 yards of free space. How can Roy Keane accept this, asks Barra de Rochta on YouTube. He'd have walked by now, but I think he's boxing clever. He knows if he storms out of this job, then no club will touch him. Kevin Kane says Ireland were dreadful yesterday, a bit better than against Denmark. McLean and Hendrick cannot cross or pass the ball. No press from the midfield and attack, and no attacking plan. Christie cannot play midfield. Horribly managed team. Brendan Rodgers or Paul Cook to take over. Booze definitely for O'Neill. Brendan Rodgers won't take the job.
No, there's not enough money in it for Brendan Rodgers, I'd imagine.
I'd say,
like, I don't think...
$1 million a year is fine.
Are we going to pay somebody $1 million a year again? Did the FAI look at this situation and say, oh God, this is a big payoff? What if it goes wrong again?
His next job is in the Premier League with a club that has at least some potential to reach the top 4. That's his next job. It's not the Irish job. I would love to see Stephen Kenny get this job. I would love to see him in place for the start of the European qualifiers, to give this team an identity, to get us playing, or at least attempting to play a certain way, and instilling a bit more confidence in these players. I don't think there's a professional manager out there with 15 years experience at the highest level. So give it to somebody like Giggs has no experience, he's thrown in there. Mark Hughes had very little experience, he was thrown into the Wales job. We have seen Gareth Southgate with no experience, bar a couple of seasons at Middlesbrough and a bit of time with the under-21s. He got that job.
In the past, the argument about League of Ireland manager coming in to take over a team of players who are playing professionally in England, essentially, and in the Premier League, as it would have been that there wouldn't have been enough respect for somebody with that heritage and that background. Has that changed?
Well, that was an issue when Brian Kerr was given the job, that people were wondering, well, the players look at Brian Kerr and his lack of a CV when it comes to senior management at club level, be it in any country. Obviously, all of Brian's success prior to that had been with the Irish underage teams, and unbelievable success at that. But the players bought into what Brian Kerr was trying to do very early on, and he got Roy Keane back on board. Ultimately, didn't work out for either the players or the manager as they would have hoped. And fast forward 12 years, we don't have players playing in the Champions League. We don't have players playing in the top half of the Premier League anymore. So you're right, I don't think that's anywhere near the issue it once was. I think what Stephen Kenny achieved at Dundalk and getting into the group stages of the Europa League is up there with anything an Irish-born manager has done in the last 20, 25 years of professional football.
He's overachieved. We need an overachiever right now.
We do. And we need someone who will set the team up to play football in a certain way. Because
do we?
We are not winning games. When Trapattoni came in on the back of the Staunton era and had us playing this turgid, dour football, what made us really difficult to beat, and we pretty much gave every team that came to Lansdowne Road or the Aviva Stadium a solid game of it. We were just happy enough to stomach that because you could see the results and you could see progress, and the players were crying out for that.
Where's the progress, though? There was results, but was there progress under Trapattoni?
The results was the progress. But now we have neither progress nor results. We're conceding shed loads of goals. We're disorganised. I would much rather see a Stephen Kenny Irish team lose 1-0 at home to Wales, having gone for it from the start and tried to play a bit of football with the ball on the deck.
The opposite side is Sam Allardyce. That's the type of manager that actually is most likely...
What is the point?
Well, you'd be organised. You'd work on your...
You asked
the question.
Now.
Let me answer the question, right? You asked, so what's the point? The point is you'd be organised, there would be shape, there would be a tactical identity to the team, there would be set pieces defensively and offensively would be worked on. Everybody would know their role, and we would know the team 2.5 days before it was announced. All of the questions about the O'Neill era would be answered, and everybody would have respect for Big Sam, and plus all those English players who are fifth generation who suddenly find a grandfather who was born pre-Brexit in Ireland are coming out of the woodwork to play for him. That's the alternative. And I'm not saying I'm for that, but I'm saying that there's a case to be made for that.
Plus points, all pros to having someone like Sam Allardyce managing the Irish team, yes. The con is that you're going to have to pay him a fortune, which we are already in that sort of hole right now, paying the manager far more than he probably deserves. Ryan Giggs is on a quarter of Martin O'Neill's salary. Granted, probably needs the money a lot less than pretty much anybody else out there that wants to manage at international level, given what Ryan Giggs earned over his Premier League career. The second one is that you have, as Eoin has already said, no succession plan. Sam comes in for 2 years. What happens after 2 years? You paid him a fortune. You may not have qualified. I want to see half.
It's a 2-year deal. It's an 18-month deal.
He's another Trapattoni.
If you qualify, he would actually be a much better Trapattoni, I think, because he speaks the same language as the players, and they can understand what he's saying. And, I think there would definitely be advantages. But so they're the extremes. That's what we're talking about here. That's on one side it's Stephen Kenny, and on the other side, and maybe they're much closer.
Who's down the middle?
Probably Mick.
Darren is here. Darren, how are you?
Morning, Ger.
Did you get somebody to go to the game with last night?
I gave the tickets to my neighbour.
You didn't go?
I didn't go. I had no interest.
You're just a generous man.
No, I absolutely had no interest. There was no interest there. O'Neill's talked down the team for the best part of the last week, and there's just no appetite. He's managed to make people feel indifferent to the national team, and that's where the buck stops. I think that's the problem. It's if you are to make a change, which I assume a lot of the papers are suggesting this morning, it comes from the top down.
Would you not go along to listen to the music booming on the speakers, no? Well, I would say the thing with Ireland potentially losing support, I don't necessarily buy it. At least if you go to the game, you've got a bar right there, whereas if you're watching the game at home, you've got to go all the way to a shop for a bottle of vodka to drown your sorrows and try and heal the pain some bit.
Drink responsibly. There was 38,000 people there last night, and how many of them paid in? I'd say a large portion got their tickets for free. And one of the big things with O'Neill is, once again, I don't think there was a discernible plan, an offensive plan, a way to to grab a goal. This whole thing of let's go out there and try and nick a goal. It didn't make a whole heap of sense. And the idea that he still doesn't tell the players until they arrive whether or not they'll be playing. Like the Christie gamble paid off the last day, and the fact that he told Christie he'd be playing him out of position an hour before kick-off. Christie was a lad who's had a rough few weeks, who's got an awful lot of criticism at club level, probably playing with a little bit less confidence than he has. And the manager tells him an hour before kick-off because he has this weird... He's tormented about... When he was asked, why do you not tell the players if they're playing, he said, well, I was a club manager one time and I told a player he wasn't playing and he told a mate on the other team and they had my 11 up on the wall 2 days before kick-off. So he doesn't trust the players enough to tell them the lineup. That for me is bonkers.
Also said that not every player wants to be told 2 days before the game that they're starting because they might get too nervous. That's what he told Joe in his interview.
He just doesn't trust them. Imagine you have a manager...
Neither argument stacks up.
Who doesn't trust you enough to tell you the information, who doesn't believe you're emotionally mature enough to deal with the information.
Well, just like I think it's a little bit of a distraction from the main issues, because like if Jose Mourinho's naming his team before a Champions League game, when does Marcus Rashford find out if he's in or out?
No, but there's the key difference being that whether or not he's in the 11, Marcus Rashford knows what his role is and what position he's going to play.
Well, I mean, come on, not always. Like sometimes he's playing.
Well, he's either going to be
playing. Sanchez, no.
He's going to be playing through the middle or on the left side of a front three. He's not going to pop up in centre midfield, Marcus Rashford.
Okay, so Cyrus Christie playing centre mid is a bit of an outlier.
And he got away with it because Christie had a great game.
And maybe Cyrus Christie trained in that position in the build-up.
Is Myler injured?
I don't think so. No, he's playing in the Championship. With
Anyway,
Reading.
Darren, you've got a day job to go to, so.
Martin O'Neill, that's where we'll start. He remains defiant this morning. He's pledged to carry on as Ireland manager, the boys in green going down 1-0 to Wales in the Nations League, marking a third loss in 4 competitive games. Asked specifically if he planned to carry on, he replied, absolutely. A crowd of 38,000, a portion of whom received free tickets in an attempt to fill the stadium, booed the team and O'Neill off the pitch. O'Neill claims he didn't hear the boos, but we're sure they weren't for the team.
Oh, well, I don't know whether they were jeers or whether it was for the referee. I didn't hear them myself. All I do know is that the crowd stayed behind to cheer the players off the field. I thought that obviously a very, very strong last 25 minutes as well when we were a goal behind. But overall, positive things to take out of the game. And as I said, delighted with the endeavour that we showed. Endeavour alone is not enough, obviously. We lack a little bit of quality. You know what? I'm not so sure that I've ever not asked questions about myself, you know. I really am not sure about that. I think I do. I think I've done that as a player, and I certainly have done that as a manager. And so, if you're asking about responsibility for it, I take responsibility for every kick that is made in that field by us. That is my job, and so that will not change.
Now, as bad as that was, there was some solace to be found on the Ireland Simpsons fans page. Take a look.
Oh, well, I don't know whether they were jeers or whether it was for the referee. I didn't hear them myself. All I do know is that the crowd stayed behind to cheer the players off the field.
Smithies, are they booing me?
No, they're saying Boo Earns. Boo Earns.
Are you saying boo or Boo Earns?
What a classic.
They were not saying Boo Earns.
It's almost as if pitting teams of similar standard against each other is a great idea.
And we're the only ones
of international soccer.
We're the only ones who could possibly go into a competition where you're seated the same as your opponents with an inferiority complex. We're literally the only country in the world who could do that.
Is Tom Mowen, manager of the under-19s, a candidate here to take over?
Should be.
Should be in the conversation.
I mean, that would be madness, normally. Under normal circumstances, it'd be like... I had to kind of look up exactly who he was. He's from Fermanagh, played 7 seasons with Finn Harps before moving into coaching. Qualified as a coach while he was still playing. Was involved with Sean McCaffrey, and then was the Ireland under-17 manager in 2012. So he's been there, been within the FAI setup. But like, aren't these the type of people who we should be grooming? Isn't that like, that's a career progression?
These are desperate times. Like, I mean, it's like wartime. Instead of food rationing, we've got coach rationing because we've got so bloody few of them that have actually been nurtured and have actually gone through the relevant processes. I think he has to be in the conversation. Like, they've done really well over the last
They've done exceptional. Yeah, they really have.
So, like, he's got to be in some sort of conversation. If there's, like, we're going to have talk now of like a think tank or something like that to sort of fix Irish football. And if that's the case, then someone like him needs to be involved.
We've got some more of your comments to get to. Desmond Mackin on YouTube says, the globalisation of the Premier League is the problem. There are plenty of Keanes and Duffs in Ireland but can't get through. I believe Keane and Duff would struggle if they were starting in this era. I don't agree. I think that Damien Duff's talent was at a very high level. I think that Robbie Keane would score goals wherever he went, which he did.
Okay, they're, you know, two of the 3 or 4 world-class players we've had in the last 15 years. But just drop one level below them. Is there validity to that argument?
100%. The Keane and Duff thing, takes that out of... Absolutely, globalisation of the Premier League is the problem, and we have to fight back by having our own very solid league that is sustainable, properly promoted, professionally run, and maybe you need centrally contracted players. Maybe that was like every team should have 2 full-time professionals that are paid for by the FAI. I don't know.
But there is a pathway that we've seen through the Championship now and into the Premier League, and that is the way Irish players are going and will need to go for quite some time now.
Yeah. Andy Dunleavy says, hey lads, highlight of the game is Stephen Hunt's discussion to bring his dog into the studio and then admits he doesn't even own a dog.
Didn't hear that.
We haven't no clarification whether or not that actually happened. Kevin Kilban 2007. Is that our Kev? It's a YouTube account. Get Stephen Hunt on every day, hashtag OTBAM. Chris Hughton is the best candidate, says James Gill. Yes, James, but he won't take the job.
Not a candidate.
Because he's got a really good job at the moment. He's doing really well. And there's a chance that he might be able to step up from that job at some point.
Sean Dyche should be a great manager one day as well.
I wonder is Chris Hughton a long-term England manager candidate?
He could be, you know. It's he seems a little bit out of the FA system, does he? Like, then again, you could say the same about Sam Allardyce, that he's very much a club man all along.
Seamus Lawless says, I was all prepared to post a rant calling for hashtag O'Neill out, Keane out. Then I heard Off the Ball mention the words Sam Allardyce. 10816 says, it looks as if Gerard's more concerned about the potential of a Euros 2020 home game with us in it than the FAI are. And then here's Colin Kavanagh. Do you really type Allardyce with a straight face? I'd wager not even Limerick would take him back. Dreadful. Could do worse than McCarthy to steady the ship over an interim 2 years or so. The negativity surrounding O'Neill and Keane has smothered this young Irish side. I mean, look at that. He's got an amazing moustache.
Young Irish side?
Yeah, we're not young. Cyrus Christie helped young Matt Doherty to...
Matt Doherty's 25.
Yeah. Matt Doherty's older than Cyrus Christie.
Yeah. Who was the youngest player in that team last night?
Callum Robinson, 23 years old.
Right, so not a child.
That's a guess, but I presume...
Not a child.
Not a child.
Are we in Belgium's circa 2000 territory? Asks the knowing football hipster Niall Colgan. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Change the whole system, give it 10 years and watch players emerge from a much stronger, better structured underage system. Will people be that patient? Doubt it. I mean, the underage system is a mess of politics and vested interests, and there has been significant change. The linking of the under 15 and 17 league with League of Ireland clubs, that is an ongoing process and not finished.
In its infancy.
Yeah.
And it is, you can start to see little green shoots of recovery from the 17s, from the 19s, and all is not lost for the future of Irish football. We're just in the midst of a really poor sequence of time and results, and there is hope.
It's always darkest just before the dawn, right?
Well, that's what I'm trying to establish this morning.
This is not the
Where is
darkest.
the dawn, though?
That's
when is
my
dawn?
worry.
You know, different.
And what time
forms of
does dawn
shade.
break?
Dawn breaks in about 6 years. I'd say we've got about 6 more years of this.
Do you think 6? I'm giving ourselves 2. Waiting for those under-19s to actually become ready-made internationals at the age of 20.
All 11 of them.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Probably 2 of them.
Here's the other debate that always happens around football from Thomas O'Connell saying, no, Niall, answering the football hipster Niall Colgan, says, no, Niall, because Belgium, much like Croatia and Iceland, who we've been compared to, don't have the majority of their young stars choosing an alternative sport that offers them a more realistic chance of being a star. Those nations' football teams also don't have to compete with the fact that rugby is played at an elite level in their country, hashtag OTBAM. But Croatia produce a bunch of world-class basketballers and Olympic handballers and loads of other things. Like
Olympians.
Yeah. I mean, tennis players. You can be whatever you want in Croatia because you've landed the genetic lottery of being 6'6" at birth. Like in Ireland, we're pudgy and potato reared. That's our problem.
Well, you know, you can be pudgy potato reared and you can pass the ball around in the grass.
A lifetime of feeding our children Stinger bars and Lucozade.
Didn't do us any harm.
Well, none of us played international football.
It wasn't because I had Stinger bars. It was due to a distinct lack of talent.
Brendan McIntyre says, Stephen Kenny has successfully managed at Europa League level. How many of our current playing squad have even played at that level or will ever play at that level in club football? The players should have massive respect for what he has done to be appointed. I mean, you can't tell people to have respect is the thing. A reminder, of course, that OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Any final words on this?
On Stephen Kenny or somebody of that ilk.
Yeah.
The O'Neill money, the Keane money is sunken money, correct? Like it's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay that anyway.
Yeah.
So if you got somebody like Stephen Kenny for, I don't know what he earns at Dundalk, but you double that and you are still only having to come up with a small amount of money, and as you said earlier, I think you were making reference to Noel King, you promise him $500,000 tax-free if we qualify for the Euros.
After tax, not tax-free. He's paying tax.
No, well, after tax for him, yes. Tax-free for him, though.
Yeah, netto.
Exactly.
It says.
So you're actually only having to come up with a small amount once you accept that the O'Neill money is sunken money. Like, it's the financial obstacles to making a clean break here. They're not insurmountable.
No.
Imagine when the next Stephen Kenny does emerge at League of Ireland level and they're like, there was a pathway to the very top, or there was a pathway at least into the Republic of Ireland system at least underage level. Let's see where Stephen Kenny goes. And that's a positive thing.
Look, here's the thing. If you were to give the job to Stephen Kenny, irrespective of whether or not he's a success immediately, what it means is all of the jobs in the League of Ireland suddenly become far more palatable because people can go, oh, hang on a second. Like, the last manager who came from the League of Ireland to manage at international level did pretty well. Michael O'Neill did a great job, having basically the same CV as Stephen Kenny.
You're absolutely right.